TikTok faced tough questions from judges at a U.S. federal appeals court on Monday, as the popular short video app made its case to block a law that would ban it. Andrew Pincus, a lawyer for TikTok and Chinese parent company ByteDance, argued that the law violates free speech protections and said that the U.S. government had not demonstrated that TikTok, which is used by 170 million Americans, actually poses national security risks.
For the first time in history, Congress has expressly targeted a specific U.S. speaker, banning its speech and the speech of 170 million Americans.
A Justice Department lawyer pressed the U.S. government's stance that China could use the app to access data on Americans or spy on them. Attorney Daniel Tenney also argued China could covertly manipulate the information Americans see on TikTok.
They say one of the things they like about it, the content creator petitioners say, well, we think this is a sort of organic source, diverse and organic source of news. The problem is, China could decide one day it doesn't want it to be that anymore. And we would have no way of knowing that. Users wouldn't be able to tell.
The law in question received bipartisan support in Congress and was signed into law by President Joe Biden in April. It gives ByteDance until January 19th to sell or divest TikTok's U.S. assets or face a ban in the United States. Judges were skeptical of TikTok's legal arguments at Monday's 2-hour hearing. The company's filing in May said the law would have broader implications for free speech if upheld. It argued Congress could effectively circumvent the First Amendment by invoking national security. However, Judge Naomi Rao said the idea that Congress lacks the authority to pass the law relied on a, quote, very strange framework for thinking about Congress. Another judge asked why this was any different from another law that bans broadcast licenses for any foreign owners. TikTok and the Justice Department have asked for a ruling by early December. That could allow the U.S. Supreme Court to consider any appeal before a ban takes effect.
Bursting their banks and inundating towns, more rivers across Central Europe have been unable to deal with a deadly deluge of heavy rain from the worst flooding in at least 2 decades. And on Monday, Poland's government declared a disaster in affected areas and said that it had set aside $260 million to help victims. Prime Minister Donald Tusk said his country and others affected would seek financial aid from the European Union. The southern Polish town of Kłodzko was still inundated with water on Monday, after border areas between the Czech Republic and Poland were hit hard over the weekend. Surging water levels collapsed some bridges, forced evacuations, and left a trail of destruction. And in Nysa, swollen rivers caused a hospital to evacuate its patients, including pregnant women and elderly people in rafts. The country's education minister said 420 schools had been closed across 4 provinces. Water levels in some parts of Poland were not expected to peak until Wednesday. Thousands have been evacuated in the Czech Republic, and in the town of Jeseník, floods stormed through on Sunday, destroying vehicles, roads and homes. Some residents have begun the clean-up after water levels began to drop. This man saw water as high as 2 meters running through the street. He says his house may need to be taken down, and the telephone lines are not working. Water and electricity are also out. Devastating impacts have also been felt in eastern Romania, where villages and towns were submerged. Countries along the Danube River, including Slovakia and Hungary, were also on watch as levels were expected to rise. Budapest has declared 12,000 soldiers are on standby to respond. In Austria, the levels of rivers and reservoirs fell overnight as rain eased, but officials were bracing for a second wave as heavier rain was expected.
German border police check a busload of tourists crossing in from France. Germany reintroduced temporary controls on its western and northern borders on Monday, part of what Berlin says are efforts to control irregular migration and cross-border crime. Political analysts say they may be aimed at undercutting support for the far right and opposition conservatives ahead of state and federal elections. In Frankfurt, on the border with Poland, this resident welcomed the checks. Here in the border areas we suffer from crime, she says, so it's very good. But a small group of protesters also gathered. This placard reads, "Asylum is a human right." Germany lies at the heart of Europe, with land borders to 9 countries. So the controls mark a setback to free movement within the European Union, one of its key pillars. On the border with Luxembourg, few could see the point.
Für den Pendlerverkehr schon sehr viel.
It has a big impact on commuters and it's not up to date. I doubt if they really catch those people who need to be caught.
Ding festmachen.
It is more of a nuisance than a help.
Habe ich meine Zweifel an, ja.
The new checks have infuriated neighbouring states, who fear they'll have to absorb more asylum seekers and also worry about the impact on trade. Polish Prime Minister Donald Tusk has called for urgent consultations with other affected countries. Checks will now apply at Germany's land borders with France, Belgium, Luxembourg, the Netherlands and Denmark for an initial 6 months. They were already in place at crossings with Poland, the Czech Republic, Austria and Switzerland. Interior Minister Nancy Faeser said controls introduced last year had blocked more than 30,000 unauthorised entries. And that was why they were being expanded.
Music mogul and rapper Sean Diddy Combs was arrested in Manhattan on Monday by federal agents. That was based on a sealed grand jury indictment, according to the U.S. Attorney for the Southern District of New York. Combs' attorney Mark Agnifilo told Reuters, quote, "We are disappointed with the decision to pursue what we believe is an unjust prosecution of Mr. Combs by the U.S. Attorney's Office." He also added that Combs voluntarily moved to New York ahead of the charges. The 54-year-old has faced several allegations of sexual assault. Last week, singer Dawn Richards sued Combs for sexual assault, battery, sex trafficking, gender discrimination, and fraud. Combs, however, denies the claims. This month, Combs was ordered to pay $100 million in a sexual assault case involving Derek Lee Smith, who accused Combs of drugging and assaulting him at a party nearly 30 years ago. Combs' attorney said he will seek to have the judgment overturned. In 2023, singer Cassandra Ventura sued Combs, accusing him of abuse, sexual slavery, and rape over a 10-year relationship. She settled the case in November 2023, and Combs denied the allegations.
The bustling financial hub of Shanghai was brought to a complete standstill by Typhoon Bebinca on Monday. The Category 1 storm marks the most powerful tropical cyclone to directly hit the city of 25 million in more than 7 decades. State media reported that it made landfall early Monday morning, packing top wind speeds of 94 miles per hour. As rain lashed down, strong winds felled more than 10,000 trees across Shanghai. More than 400,000 people were evacuated from at-risk homes in Bebinca's path. Travel plans were disrupted for many during the weekend's 3-day public holiday, with over 1,400 flights and hundreds of trains cancelled, as well as services disrupted at metro stations and some road closures. Despite rarely being hit directly by strong typhoons, residents of Shanghai, like student Fu Qiheng, weren't worried about the impact, instead lauding the city's infrastructure. By early Monday afternoon, the eye of the storm had crossed from Shanghai to the neighbouring Jiangsu province. Rain was expected to continue in China's financial capital throughout the rest of the day.
At this industrial site in the outskirts of Calais, men play soccer, waiting for an opportunity to try to cross the English Channel from northern France. Dozens of people have died attempting that crossing this year alone. But this man from Sudan, who did not want to be identified, says he has no choice but to try.
Yeah, I'm afraid. Everybody here is afraid. But we must take this risk because we want to rise to UK. There is no way another way.
He is one of a couple hundred Sudanese men living in tents at the warehouse site.
I leave Sudan because there is war. Many war. Everyone kill us.
The channel is one of the world's busiest shipping lanes with strong currents that make crossing it on small boats dangerous. On Sunday, French authorities said 8 people died trying to get across. Earlier this month, 12 died in another attempt. The Sudanese man compares the situation of the men living here to Syrians that fled after war broke out in 2011. In 2015, then German Chancellor Angela Merkel decided to allow over 1 million asylum seekers, many of them Syrians, to enter the country.
I know when the war happening in Syria, the organizations helped the Syrian peoples from taking to Germany, but no organization helped the Sudanese people.
He says life here feels like a disaster and does not believe there are any opportunities for the men in France. He said he thinks they'd have a better shot in Britain where they speak the language, and that he hopes to get there any way he can.
I don't know. I take my chances with cars or with boots.
Standing in his home in southern Poland, Dark Kyrgyzstan points to damage caused by severe rain and flooding. He says he and his 16-year-old son have no place to live. There is nothing left, he said. Tiles are destroyed, floors are destroyed, walls are overturned. A nearby dam burst on Sunday, submerging the historic Polish spa town as well as nearby towns and villages. Border areas between the Czech Republic and Poland were hit hard over the weekend. Heavy rain and surging water levels have forced evacuations and left a trail of destruction, as well as a rising number of deaths. It's the worst flooding in over 2 decades. Kyrgyzstan said the rain started on Friday in his town, the dam breached on Sunday, and then the water started rising in his home. His son Shemon says his room no longer exists.
The losses are unimaginable for the city. All the bridges are broken. Asphalt is coming off. The town doesn't have the funds to repair it. The city looks like an apocalypse. I would call it a ghost town.
Kyrgyzstan said he has experienced 3 floods in his life, including the significant 1997 event referred to as the flood of the century. But this, he said, has been the worst.